Hello, I just wanted to do a quick video on a particular issue that you may come across from time and time again. This is a book I've been working on for a couple of months now. It's a pretty lengthy nonfiction book. It is 342 pages, but it includes, you don't even want to see all my paragraph styles that I created for this one. It includes multiple levels of headings and tons of different bulleted lists and numbered lists and just a lot of block quotes, you name it. The one thing this doesn't have is tables. Tables can be a pain in the butt, so I am thankful for that. However, when working with clients and going back and forth after the first draft is done, it is quite normal to go through many rounds of edits, but going through edits can present problems. And this is just one particular problem with this one book because she did an index for this book and she already has the page number set in the index. Now, there are a couple ways to do indexes in InDesign where you can actually have the index update the page numbers, but that's pretty complex and most authors are not willing to pay the hundreds of dollars it takes to get an index done that way. So a lot of authors will just create a word list and just basically search the text and write down the page number, and then I take that and insert it into the index. But that has already been done. She's already gone through the step of finding all the words and giving the page numbers. So any significant change in the way the pages are structured can cause issues with those page counts. And so we're on page 80 right now, and she wants me to move this one line here. She wants me to make it a first para with an indent above, which is fine, easy enough. However, if we look at this page, it's already balanced, and this is the end of the chapter. Now, I have no room to add an extra line because the next chapter begins here. So if I were to make this change and keep the structure of the book intact for her page numbers, it would not be possible to keep the page numbers intact because this means I need to add a page, another page to shift, some of this text to the next page. And I really can't go back at any of the pages before in this particular book to try to create room because all of these headings can cause issues because with headings, you always want at least 2 lines together with a heading. Like you can't have the heading at the bottom of the page and the paragraph start at the top. That's just a big no-no. So in fact, I would need to create at least 3 lines to move this to the page before, and that's just really not possible in this book. So what can we do? All right, now this is just one of those little naughty tricks that we're going to do just to solve these particular issues. Now, I don't recommend doing these frequently, but in this particular case, it is called for. Most people are not going to notice. However, somebody with a good eye may. All right, so the first thing we're going to take a look at is line spacing. All right, so because I built this with the template, everything is set to the baseline. So you'll notice even the headings are set to the baseline. And if we have spaces, the space is the exact baseline. And for this particular book, our baseline grid is set to 15. So let's think about adjusting the baseline just on these 2 pages so I can try to create one more line, because this is what we need. We need this line right here to be a first pair of space above, okay? So if we look, it's going to take a minute because it's having to reflow all the pages. It's kind of so sad that it's just one little line. See, this is what we got to figure out. We got to get this line here, but we really don't have the room. So we are going to just do a little tweak behind the scenes on these 2 pages and these 2 pages only. So the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to select all the text, and we are just going to manually change the grid or the line spacing. Let's start with 14.75 because we don't want it to be that noticeable. All right, now it's going to look funny at first. It's not going to make any changes, and that's because our baseline is still set to 15. However, we can set individual text frames with a different baseline, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to select both of these text frames. No other text frames is selected, and we are going to right click with both of them selected. We're going to go to text frame options. All right, when that comes up, we're going to look at baseline options, and this is where we can set a custom baseline grid for individual pages. So since we changed our line spacing to 14.75, I'm going to try my grid. I'm going to set my grid to 14.75, and then I'm going to click on OK. Well, that did not give me enough room. All right. Now, the important thing of doing this is that you need to change your line spacing of all the text on those 2 pages first, and I'll show you why in just a minute. All right, so we have these 2 text frames still selected. We're going to right click, we're going to go to text frames, and I'm going to change it to 14.5. But it's not, It's taking its sweet little time. This is kind of a complex book. All right, so now this was like, oh my gosh, what happened? Well, it's because we didn't change our line spacing first. Even though we're changing the baseline, InDesign looks at the baseline first, and then it takes a look at your line spacing after that. So if your line spacing is larger than the baseline, it's going to push it to the next baseline. So it's going to look like it's double spaced, just like it is here. So to correct this, we need to adjust the baseline, the line spacing. I know all these confusing terms. For all of this, because it's set to 14.5, which is essentially pushing it, because we set our baseline grid to 14.5, it's pushing it to 30, let's see, 28, 29, yeah, 29. That's how it's spacing everything out. So it looks like our baseline grid is 29. I know you just wanted to do math, right? All right, so we are going to change our line spacing to match our baseline grid, which is 14.5, and hopefully just that small tweak will get everything to fit. And yes, 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 it does. And it's such a baby change that no one's really going to notice it unless they have a really good eye. Scrolling back and forth, you can see a slight difference, but as someone is reading it, they're really not even going to notice that. So if you ever find yourself struggling to fit on a page, that is one trick that you can do. I just wouldn't use it unless you absolutely have to. And in this situation, because we already have an index with the page number set, this was absolutely necessary. I hope that was a good tip for you.